Hello there folks, welcome back to another football video on the channel and the final review of Euro 2020-21. Nobody knows, viewers, nobody knows. Italy were victorious, and the first thing to say is deservedly so. As much as I wanted England to win, as much as I thought England had the ability to win, when it came to the final, there was only one team that was ever going to win it, and that was quite clear, I felt, after probably 10 or 15 minutes, despite the fact we scored the goal. It was the classic thing, you've heard the phrase in football before, we almost scored too early, and defending from sort of 60 or 70 minutes that England have done a few times this tournament has worked out quite well. Doing it from 2 minutes against Italy, who have looked fantastic this tournament, not as easy to do. What's really interesting to me is that the experience levels of both sides, and of course we can talk about the penalties in a moment, but Italy, I've not seen a team maybe as dominant as that since Spain beat them 4-0. And it's no surprise to me, the two players that exist in this Italian lineup that were there all those years ago were Chiellini and Bonucci, and arguably two standout performers on the day. Were really, really good, and you could tell the passion and the lack of, like, Chiellini, I don't know if he was acting or not, but you could tell with Chiellini there was this attitude of, I've done it all and this is kind of my time. And for England, look, there are Champions League winners there, but there are not international winners there. And even with someone like Chiellini, of course, that's won a World Cup, I would assume he was part of that squad many, many years ago. Like, it's different because there are finite opportunities. When these Champions League winners or losers exist, they know as a top European side, they're going to be back again. They're going to be in the conversation again. There are a finite amount of chances with England. And I felt like the experience, the youth, as much as it's given England some great moments this tournament, actually was the thing that undid them in the final. There was this lack of composure for me. There was a complete lack of control that Italy had in abundance, and you could tell there was a side there that were led by Bonucci and Chiellini, and there were some great performers for Italy, and I don't think they were phenomenal, but their ability to control it was like England in this tournament, really. Like, their ability to control it and to keep a side doing what they wanted to do was so crucial. England never found a rhythm, they never found momentum, and it was just, maybe it was a tournament too early. Like, I know we had Croatia and I know we had the World Cup, and this felt like the next step on that journey, and sometimes you've got to have this huge disappointment, and it is like there's not going to be a higher pressure, a higher intensity game for England in their lives. And as much as people think, and if you're an England fan, you will probably know this by now, that it's coming home does not mean we are going to win, or we think we're going to win. We've been seeing it for 30 years. Like, that's not the way it works. It's coming home, to me at least, and maybe giving my opinion on it is better, is that this is our hope. This is the chance. I actually believe in this group of players that we can do it. And I think most England fans would agree that although they've sung it over the last 25 years, they've never sung it louder than under Gareth Southgate. And that, to me, shows huge strides. And I am disappointed and I am upset. I'm not angry. Like, again, they've given me some of the best moments I've ever had as an England fan. Beating Germany at Wembley, having that semi-final win over Denmark in dramatic circumstances. Like, I know it didn't go well for Denmark in that situation, but as an England fan, we got to a final. I've never seen it before. I didn't know how to react. I felt sick throughout the entire final. And that probably summed it up. Like, the Italian fans in the stadium looked joyous, looked like, oh, this is what a spectacle, what a moment. And England fans looked like this is the worst thing to ever happen to them. We better do a song. I feel ill again. We better do a song. And I don't know if that translated to the pitch a little bit, and it's not the fault of the fans. I think collectively England were overawed by the occasion, and I also think in that so was Gareth Southgate. I think this is the first time Southgate got some things wrong, and I actually think the changes that he made things more difficult. Let's talk a little bit about the game as a whole. Some of the factors to why Italy was so strong and so dominant, and some of the factors why England weren't. All right, I'll put myself at the top because it seems like the only place. The only thing I'm covering is the attendance and the score, which I think you probably know one of those, and that's the one that matters. So, of course, we come back to who scored, and the way England set up at the start of the game, I was actually really surprised. Of course, they finished the game like this. If we just bring this back to sort of half time and how the opening half went, I was surprised he went with the 5. I wasn't blaming him for that. I just thought if you're going to play this way, you allow this 3 to kind of do what they want, and I don't think Sterling or Mount necessarily did enough to disrupt Barella, Verratti and Jorginho, whose past success in that first half, Barella maybe not quite as much, but Jorginho absolutely controlled it, and Verratti was there, Chiellini was solid, and there was this essence of that when they're under pressure, they weren't giving it away. If you contrast that, and these are the pass completion percentages, I should say, there was a distinct lack of control. This right side really struggled, as much as like the left side for Italy did really well. And when you compare Italy's right side that wasn't quite as good on the ball to England's, it's pretty stark. Like Kyle Walker 69%, Phillips 67%, Trippier 60%. I don't want to pinpoint this, but I will mention it. Like, it's why I would have had Henderson in there from the start. Retrospectively, Henderson had a really poor performance. I thought he came on, he looked overawed, he couldn't settle in. The system didn't allow us to press properly. I felt like, again, I just felt like the game was lost quite early. I think Phillips and Rice have had a phenomenal tournament. I think defensively, I think Kyle Walker has been fantastic. I think Harry Maguire, despite coming in late, has been one of our best performers throughout the entire tournament. Luke Shaw has had felt like a bit of a breakout tournament for Luke Shaw. I know he's been around for a very long time, but like, there was the conversation pre-tournament of Chilwell or Trippier, and I think that conversation is sort of non-existent. Like, Chilwell didn't even make the squad later in the tournament, and of course had that COVID situation. Mason Mount had a really poor first half, and again, there was no rhythm, there was no cohesion with the team, and that made life very difficult for us. And what England have done, again, and I've talked about it all tournament, is have that control, and it's sort of summarised, there is a complete lack of it. Harry Kane's hold-up play wasn't the best. There was just a lot of factors. I thought Declan Rice had like a pretty good tournament, a pretty good game. Sorry, he didn't have a great second half. Like he wasn't involved. This is just the second half. So that was the first half, to be clear, and this was the second half. You can see Rice down here, 57% of his passes were being completed, and that he didn't do that many, but even then, like, he looked leggy, he looked tired, and that second half especially. I go back to the game against Denmark, where Denmark looked exhausted in that game, and I thought England would be able to avoid that, but there was just a lack of intensity, a lack of desire from these England boys, and I think that was just born out of tiredness. I don't think they didn't want to win, but there definitely felt like there was this fear amongst the boys, and these pass completions, by the way, of the back line of Stones, Maguire, Shaw, and Henderson as well, and arguably Phillips, who had a much better time sitting, I thought, actually, was far better in that role where he sort of had to patrol and he knew his job, and his job really was to get the ball and play some nice, short, simple passes, as these are clearances. This is the sort of situation where England are just launching it forward and trying to relieve themselves of pressure, and there wasn't enough of a connection, enough of a bond from the defence to the midfield and the attack, and it sort of sums up the whole game for me. If you look at the game as a whole, and you look at some of the stats down here, England have had 6 shots in the game. 6. One of them was in the I think we can bring them up actually on the chalkboard to give you a better idea. You can see no matter where it was, Italy were peppering. England had these chances from close range, right? Like he's having headers, basically. That's tends to be what it is. The goal from Luke Shaw is very close, but England's opportunities were so limited, and so just there was such a lack of creation from England, and I think that was what was disappointing. And once Italy got their second goal, also got their goal in return, they knew who was in control of that game. Like our dribbles, we mentioned Sterling in the last game had like an immense amount of dribbles. He was so good on the ball, and the fact that Declan Rice is matching him, and the fact that Kane, like driving through the Italian defence, and I mentioned pre-game, like you've got to flip their lines. You've got to get Verratti and Jorginho and Barella turning and going towards goal. And when that happened, they were more than happy to foul England. And when it happened to us, there was numerous occasions where I just felt like Phillips or Rice or somebody, or Henderson even, whoever it was in there, should have just been prepared to make a foul. Sometimes you've got to eat a booking, to stop the momentum. And we never did that enough. We didn't give Italy anything to worry about. And that was the frustration, I think, tactically from Gareth. Like, the switch to the 3, he sort of matched what was going on. And that to me, was the problem. Like, you had the 3 in midfield that you were facing, right? And it was quite a flat 3, and Jorginho sits a little deeper. And Southgate matched that. And for me, playing Henderson and Mount either side of Phillips was the wrong move. Put Henderson next to Phillips and let Mount sit on Jorginho. Try and break the rhythm a little bit. Or have Kane do it and have Mount push beyond. It just, again, it felt disconnected. And we can look back at this game, and again, coming to the penalties, there's a lot of conversation about these players, and it was unfair on them. It was unfair on Rashford and Sancho and Saka. And these guys have got 89 appearances between the 3 of them in European competition, be that Europa League or Champions League. it's not a lack of experience that's the problem. Like, you can look at Saka's age and say that he's 19. Yeah, I would say it at the start of the video. There is not on a more intense occasion for there to be an England player taking a penalty in a competition like the Euros. You'll never have a situation more intense. And on that level, sure, maybe Grealish should have gone before Saka. Sterling should have gone before Saka. But Gareth Southgate said after the game, based on what they've seen in training and these players taking penalties on a regular basis, and of course the argument will be training is incredibly difficult, different to X amount of thousand at Wembley Stadium in the final. But what's the alternative there? That they don't take them? If they do take them, what a moment for them. And maybe Southgate was trying to give them that moment, and maybe that's poor management, right? And that's something that I think definitely people will talk about in the comment section. For me, if Southgate thought that was his best 5 penalty takers, those are the 5 that should have taken the penalties. That's how I feel about it. I understand the pressure that is put on the player that goes 5th, but inevitably, if the penalty shootout continues, they still have to take those, but like 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, the pressure on those penalties, it doesn't decrease. Like, it stays at that 5th penalty. You're in sudden death at that point. They're always going to be put in that position to some degree. And look, it's unfortunate, it's sad, and on another day, that 5th penalty is not even taken, right? But of course, those 3 players missing, they weren't good penalties, and you can talk about the technique involved. I think it spoke of the whole game for me. And Jordan Pickford comes out with a lot of credit. Donnarumma's massive, and they didn't score. And sometimes that's just football, isn't it? Like, Jorginho is one of the most consistent penalty takers in the world, right? His technique is talked about a lot. He missed. He's 29. He's got all that experience. Harry Kane scored a wonderful penalty against Donnarumma, but just a few days before missed his penalty and got extraordinarily lucky with a rebound. If that's a shootout, he's missed. It's very easy to say these things once they've missed. I think, again, I draw back to it. If Gareth thought they were his best 5 penalty takers, then they take them. Maybe you think the order should be different in that case. I don't know. I as manager, and I'll lead into Football Manager very slightly. When it comes up with their penalty attributes, guess who I select to take them? The ones who are the best at the penalties, not the ones that have played 150 times for England. I don't know. Maybe I don't win a lot of penalty shootouts, actually. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'll get that wrong. The tournament's over. As a whole, I think I've got immense pride in this team, and I look forward to the tournament in 18 months where I don't think this team will change an awful lot. Like, I could see this exact 11, as long as Kyle Walker's still rapid, I could see this exact 11 or this exact 26 being the contenders. I think there's a few others that will be mentioned within this, and that might be the likes of Trent will be back in the conversation. Mason Greenwood will certainly be back in the conversation. Tomori might be back in the conversation, a few others. It shows progress and it shows promise, and much like all those years ago, 9 years ago, when Italy were beaten and were embarrassed by Spain, I think there'll be an element of regret with Gareth Southgate in this team, that in the final they didn't quite have the experience or the know-how or the knowledge. But I'll tell you what, they've got it now, and that gives me a lot of hope, and again, a lot of pride. I'm excited to see what's to come from this team, and what a wonderful tournament. Again, I'll talk about my predictions in a video tomorrow, but that's going to conclude. England don't win, Italy deservedly do, and even though we didn't win, it still came home. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you've enjoyed it, do drop a like on it. I appreciate all the support on the football content. So much so that I think we might do some more. The coming season is coming soon. So yeah, no time to waste. Shout out to Proudy. He's edited a lot of these videos together for me as well. I could not have done it without him, it's fair to say. And yeah, see you soon. Goodbye, everybody.